Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Harry Potter. I'm Retty4, this is Greyjoy91.
Hello.
This is Evan Nova95.
Hello.
This is Jen Sarai1.
Justin Loyal, unafraid of toil.
And this is Antoine Bandelay.
I solemnly swear that I am up to no good.
Lead us in with what we're covering today, Antoine.
Oh, I'm lazy, so I'm just going to read the IMDb synopsis. In mid-20s New York, Newt Scamander, the British young activist wizard, arrives in town holding a mysterious leather suitcase which shelters a wide array of diverse and magical creatures that exist among us. So this kind of stems from J.K. Rowling's back in the day. She wrote a lore book. When did she write these, actually? Was it in between Chamber and Azkaban?
I think it was around
Azkaban
that period, yeah. I can't recall the exact timing, though.
Is it that old?
It's really old, yeah. It's really early on.
And it's based around this guy named Newt Scamander who wrote this textbook about these fantastic creatures, and what he was trying to do, I guess as like an allegory or whatever to today, is like he's a zoologist who's trying to get people to understand, hey, these magical creatures, we don't need to just hunt them or be afraid of them. We can understand them if we, actually study them. And that's his main goal as a zoologist. Yeah, as a conservationist. And we see a bit of that, but also it's intermingled a little bit with some Grindelwald storyline, and also other things that we're going to talk about.
Way before, because this takes place way
it takes place before he publishes, yes.
Yeah.
He's still studying his creatures and developing his book as he goes on these hijinks adventures. First we're going to start with, we're going to talk about
General
characters.
impressions.
Well, sorry, yeah, you're right. General impressions first, characters, and then the plot, and anything that we want to, like, kind of sweep up at the end. So, general impressions. Callan, you go ahead. What were your general impressions?
It took me a while to watch this. I only watched this very recently for this, the lead up into this analysis. I didn't have anything particularly drawing to me in the first place outside of that. So it kind of passed me by. But I sort of, from the trailer and from what people had said, I thought, okay, this looks, pretty all right. Nothing I particularly need to see, but something that's, perfectly enjoyable by itself. And having now watched it, that's basically my, overall thoughts on it after the fact. I enjoy the characters for the most part. There are a few exceptions, but I enjoy the kind of group it kind of builds up for the story. I would like to see more focused on them and more from them in the future. But as a overall plot, I wasn't really invested in this. I want to see more. I love the concept of the Fantastic Beasts. I want to see just a series, even if not a film, of Newt and his merry band going around and gathering these creatures and looking at them and learning about them and trying to teach others about them. I could watch a series about that to the end of all day. But what we actually got with the overall plot and relating to Grindelwald, I think it was a bit disparate in its theme and its purpose. It didn't gel for me personally.
Could I cut in for a second?
Jump in.
So I haven't seen this movie all the way through ever, even including the last time I just saw it. I rented it on Amazon Prime last night and started watching it, and I lost interest at some point, like about an hour in, and then I restarted it this morning and finished it and thought, oh, okay, there's a lot of pockets in here that I'm interested in, but for me, like to add on to what you just said, I knew general premise behind this movie before I actually saw it, and immediately my interest plummeted as soon as I realized Grindelwald was involved in any way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. I think one of you said before we started that you may be fine with the idea of a Harry Potter expanded universe, but you should expand it. And this to me seems like kind of expanding like a smaller story that we already kind of know, and not really spinning it off into something I knew and drawing that I want to see. So for me, there's go ahead.
Kind of
that's fine.
Between those two.
That's actually, I really agree with that sentiment, because the problem is it's almost like Fantastic Beasts is doing the kind of the direct prequel trilogy analog storyline to the main Harry Potter storyline, which would be Grindelwald's rise to power, whereas I think this movie would have been so much better if it dropped the whole association with Newt Scamander, and if you're going to do a hardcore Harry Potter expanded universe, like do something about the origins of Hogwarts. Don't give us the prequel trilogy, give us Tales of the Jedi.
Or
I'm
you
actually
could possibly
fine.
go in the opposite direction, have the movie just being centered around Newt and his
Right.
zoology
Yeah,
and
that's what
drop
I
the
mean as
Grindelwald
well.
connection, and you could have that be its
Exactly.
own movie series, which
Yeah.
you could then expand on with its own cast. And
Not
you
everyone
don't get
has
this
to
like
be-
weird, you don't get like this awkward mesh, because I feel like that's kind of this movie, and if the reviews are any indication, the sequel that's coming out next week, that they're trying to take two very different characters and stories and kind of weave them into a narrative that really doesn't quite come out as cohesive as it probably could have been.
Yeah, see,
I
I like
don't know
Newt.
what it is.
I really enjoy the
Yeah,
character.
exactly, I agree.
But,
Like,
but
I-
he doesn't belong in that narrative. He doesn't have anything to do with
Right.
Grindelwald. He shouldn't. He's a conservationist. Why is he getting involved in a war against one of the most powerful dark wizards of all time?
Which is something he even brings
brings
up
up
in
in-
the film.
yeah.
But just because you're acknowledging something doesn't fit doesn't mean you should still keep going with that in your film.
Yeah, it just doesn't match thematically. It doesn't match on a narrative level. It raises so many questions. I mean, that's one of the other things I disliked about this film. Don't get me wrong. For the record, I enjoy this film overall. I'm not trying to hammer on it, but I think one of the strong weaknesses of it, strong weaknesses, is the world building. It is trying to expand upon
As is the norm for
the
this
setting.
series.
Yeah. It's compounding the problem because it's trying to set up some new ideas and some new concepts for the setting moving forward, and so that she has these different branches you can go down. But she's raising more questions than she's answering, and it's not at the it's coming at the expense of future potential in storytelling and characters. There are things that do not make sense now about the Harry Potter setting that you could kind of push aside because it wasn't the focus before, but now more and more it's coming to the fore.
Now
And
that it's in your face, you can't ignore it.
And it's just it's getting to the point now where it can't be fixed. It's now okay. Now we just have to throw our hands up and just deal with it. It's no longer the foundation has been laid. It's the wrong kind of foundation, and now we have to get over it and just focus on the characters. But for the most part, like I said, the characters I enjoyed more than I expected to. Actually, I'm looking forward to get to that section.
Right.
Yes.
So like with Newt, I the reason why I do enjoy this movie, and I do have negative things to say about it because they kind of shy away from Newt, is because I like him so much, and he holds the core of what made Harry Potter special to me, and that's the idea of compassion and friendship, especially for what he has for the Nomad, who I'm forgetting his name, Kowalski.
That's his
Jacob.
name. Okay, good.
Jacob Kowalski.
There's a sequence, or there's several sequences where friendship and it is tested, and the relationship, and how Newt, as a Hufflepuff, rises to that occasion of being able to be such a passionate person, not just for his own Fantastic Beasts and all that, but just people in general. Like he has a better insight to how to into his humanity because because of his working with these beasts. So then when you have like the core group, that's great. And I'm like, okay, this part, whenever that portion of the movie came up or those themes came up, I'm like, this is what I would want. But then they shoehorn, this stuff with Grindelwald, and then that's when it descends for me a little bit. Or even at times, I can call this a boring movie at some point. You know what I mean?
Good.
Like it's
Completely agree.
Good. All right. Yeah,
I'm completely on board with that assessment.
No, I didn't know if you were going to have that opinion or not, because I know you like this film more than the sequel because you've
No,
seen it.
there are times where the movie is just straight boring.
Yeah, and
I just
it's
don't
interesting.
care.
That's I haven't been able to finish. I have not seen this movie in one sitting ever. Like it just I can't get through it all. And I like Newt, like you just said, a lot. I like some of the ancillary characters, even though I don't remember their names. I'm sorry. The blonde Legillian
Queenie
Goldstein.
Queenie.
Yeah, Queenie.
Yeah.
I enjoyed her. I enjoy the visuals. I enjoy just some of the humor, but it's interspersed with like this overarching plot that I just don't care about. And I feel like I wish they'd had the confidence to just do the new movie and not tie it into like all this other, because Harry Potter works in that way because we care about not just Harry, but that castle, that setting is so central to like what's going on, and that's tied to Harry and the antagonist, Voldemort. So you have like that built-in excuse to explore both of them in that story. These two, it really feels forced, clashing their storylines together. The world is vast. You don't need to have these two wizards that have nothing to do with each other aside from not even Hogwarts. He didn't go to Hogwarts.
No.
They have an association with Dumbledore, and that's it.
And that even isn't even in this film. That's not even in this film.
Completely different kinds of associations, though.
But also,
Yeah,
you can't even build off that.
and also that's not really in this film. They're bringing that in with the second one because, as an answer to that problem. It's not. Yeah, of course, Dumbledore stood up for him, and in terms of his getting expelled, another one of the examples that doesn't make sense because why does he have a wand still? That's supposed to mean getting your wand snapped, but that's only one of the minor issues. That's the only connection we've been given from this film. So why is he getting involved in all this beyond caring about the situation around him? And it's a situation he shouldn't have been put in. Narratively speaking, you don't have this kind of character go up against this kind of force. They don't blend on a any level. It's just forced and hamstrung in there, and I'm really not a fan.
I definitely feel like this movie could have been trimmed down by maybe like half an hour, and things would have felt a lot smoother.
The problem is that the movie couldn't decide what it wanted to be. So It was basically going half measures on everything when it should have either said, no, we're either entirely all about Newt Scamander, or no, we're entirely all about Grindelwald's rise for power, in which case Dumbledore's the main character. So it's like...
Exactly.
It's
a shame, too, because... Oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, I just have a quick question that I don't know the answer to, but I'm sure one of you does. They originally were going to give a certain number of films, and then they expanded it even more films, right?
I believe so.
I think it was originally going to be 3, but now it's 5.
Yeah, I think it should be.
They don't have enough story for all this.
No.
You say that, but it's supposed to be 20 years until Grindelwald is brought down. So we've got 20 years to cover here.
20 years.
Oh,
20
Lord.
years until Dumbledore beats him. This took place in 1926. I went back and checked, and it's like, 1945. He beat Grindelwald. What? I just established that in my mind today. I just go, what are you doing, Dumbledore? It just seems...
He's just sitting on his hands this entire time. And that could be a compelling story by itself, but we're not looking at Dumbledore right now. We're looking at Newt,
but that could work in its own series.
Yeah,
the sad
precisely.
The sad thing is that really you could have fixed this movie just by downsizing the Grindelwald plotline. Not completely eliminating it, just by downsizing it to the point where it's an ancillary thing. Instead it's like Grindelwald and his shtick, and his whole shtick is just a background thing that's being kind of foreshadowed as sequel bait, but is not the main focus. All we have is just Newt flipping through a newspaper, and it's mentioned, oh, there's this psychotic radical criminal in Europe raising hack.
Just have it be an Easter egg. Have it be the Nick Fury at the end of the film that brings in that notion of an expanded universe to come. That's all you needed. You didn't need anything else with this one.
Because the stuff with Credence is fine. The relationship that he was having with Grindelwald maybe again brings in that whole bit that we're not really a fan of. But Credence himself, and the fact that Newt is the only person who can empathize with him and even help him because he's studying about magical creatures and even these dark entities. Something like that, I think Credence is fine. In terms of
he could have been the central kind of point for in the story, but he's almost an artifact. He's just a MacGuffin for Grindelwald to care about, but also doesn't quite care about because he's
the Obscurial.
Yeah, he's the Obscurial.
Okay, the one with the unfortunate haircut.
Yes,
that one.
The Flash.
Yeah, he played the Flash in Justice League.
Oh, okay.
But
that's right.
But yeah, moving on to the actual character, because that's something where I think we can enjoy about this. The core character in the cast, by and large, with the exception of is it Tina Goldstein, the boring one as far as I'm
older
concerned.
sister. Yeah.
Apart from her, I love the main core. I like them way more than I expected to. Not least Newt, of course, but even Jacob. I found him really charming and just likable in a way that kind of sidekick character
especially from his opening scene. He's just trying to get money for his bakery also he just came from the war, which should be traumatic, but he still has high hopes for I can have my bakery, but then the world's just shutting him down.
That New York
he can't give you a loan
kind of thing.
Right, exactly. But he's still even though he gets denied, he's still okay, I can try again. He in himself is kind of a Hufflepuff as well.
Yeah, definitely.
It's great.
And he is
very
kind of
sympathetic.
Yeah, they are kind of bumbling their way through this, but it's not in that. It's not played for humor. It's for the most part. It's played for there's an earnest lens of character growth through here that I really enjoy. It's just a really charming character front.
It is kind of funny though seeing an American character in what's his name, Kowalski? What's his name? Jacob
Kowalski.
Yeah.
Jacob Kowalski. He's an American character, and not just an American character, a New York character, right? But doing kind of weird British humor that's very understated. When they meet, is why are you here? Well, same reason as you. You want money for a bakery?
That is
that's very British.
J.K. Rowling's writing.
Yeah. It's just funny seeing it in an American setting, the American city as well. But in any case,
it's worth noting actually the transition to an American setting, just full stop. The switch from what was predominantly a British setting because of the way the place Harry Potter was or stage set. There we go. That's the one I'm looking for.
Set.
And now transitioning over to this New York, the bastion of the American society for the time. It's a nice. I like how they did blend the kind of feel, and I feel like Newt was a good vehicle for that. Having his because he's he's kind of the adorable hero. He's very awkward. But very charming at the same time. He's like head down and to the side, not very confident, but still very much I know what I'm doing. I'm going the dogged
he's
path.
also like the Harry Potter world coming into America.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
He's bringing all the values that we already
him.
knew from exactly. So like there's a point when he first meets Tina and they talk about no-mags not being able to marry muggles, and he's like, what, that's backwards, like we don't, or sorry, no-mags were dating wizards and witches, and he's like, that's backwards, we don't like do that where I come from, and then like there's a little joke about Jacob, like who's gonna marry him when he got bit by the whatever creature there it was, but like seeing that kind of stuff through his eyes, because we're kind of like the audience coming from like, okay, we know how like this works, but no, America's much different,
Just the name, what? Oh, we call them Muggles. It's just that kind of just the parlance that are being changed. And I like that she took the time to to spell that out, because those kind of changes for the new setting or new part of the setting I really enjoy. But then you have other questions that come in from the world building ones that get asked as a result of that, like all of the rest of the world when they come to the meeting with the world leaders, and their question, no match, obliviate them now. It's like, is Britain the only country in the entire world that allows Muggles to know that the Wizarding World exists? I mean, what? That cannot be the case. So, they're stumbling a bit in how they're trying to set up the setting at this stage.
I can see what she's doing, because in a way that is a bit of what America kind of was. I mean, they were getting out of it at that time, but when people were coming over, like the Pilgrims and such, they were the ones that were a lot more, I'm going to say, conservative with the religion, and the way that they were the ones burning witches and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, because they were being persecuted back in the homeland before they left. So I do kind of understand that, because
but at this point in history, that's vastly changed, though. Those sensibilities are different for this era.
But yeah, it's 20s though, so it's different. Yeah, so if it was like
this was
1800s,
1640, fine. Like if we're in like Puritan age, that's great.
Right.
But I mean, we're now in like the 1920s, and it just seems. This is something I said to Callan before. Like the only like witch story we have in America is like the Salem witch trials, and it just seems like, oh, okay, well, that's the one reference I can make. And
Salem is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it just.
Nose.
It seems a little bit like grasping at straws, or like I don't have enough canvas for my painting. Like basically, like is the way I feel. Like with a lot of this, really. But yeah, that I don't know. I've said my bit on that. We can move on to something else.
What do you guys feel about Queenie? And her ability. She's like the strongest.
Yeah, the legitimacy's problem
very
is
charming and likable.
Yeah, notwithstanding the legitimacy's problem, I enjoyed the character. She was really engaging for me, and I thought, yeah, that's another nice little rounded out part of the cast. But yeah, she has to be a natural legitimens rather than someone who learned it, because she doesn't need eye contact. She can do it over ridiculous ranges, all that jazz.
Well, she also she can hear your thoughts. Like she makes a joke about the accent.
Yeah,
I mean, unless it was just a joke, but it seemed like not to me.
She hears their active thoughts.
Yeah.
So that's why she says it's hard for Brits, because she's like, I don't really understand when you guys say stuff sometimes in your head.
Yeah, that's not really like a thing, like in the actual, well, I don't want to say the actual lore because Rowling writes this, but I mean, you know what I mean? In the original version of the story, that's not the way it was portrayed. But despite that, as Callan said, I like her. I thought she was one of the most engaging characters, maybe the second most after Newt, for me.
Agreed, yeah. And I didn't expect to, again, I didn't expect to like her from the initial portrayal. I thought, oh, okay, this is going to be one of those airhead characters. But no, it's another one. It's an example of an airhead character that I love, because they do exist, but they're so rare in this
right,
kind of
but they still can be awesome.
Yeah, precisely. Some of them are more awesome for it, but it's so rare that you actually get that approach. It's nice
almost
to see.
like what makes Queenie work so well is I'm left with the distinct impression that she deliberately projects the vibe that she's an airhead, specifically so she can catch people off guard. It's like some guy walks up, thinks he can put the moves on her, and then she just, with one word, turns it completely around and says, nah, I can literally read your thoughts, get out of my face.
Right. Or at least she magnifies it, even if it's
right, exactly. I think that it's
she plays
naturally
it
part of her, but she's like, okay, this is my tool, so I will use it instead of trying to be something that I'm not. Try to be like a Tina or something like that, who's quite the opposite. She's kind of
I found her really boring in comparison. Like she's just I've seen this character a million times. Nothing interesting about this person. I mean, she does some good things, don't get me wrong, and there's some qualities I enjoy about the character, but overall I'm like, yeah, I've seen this. Give me the rest of the other three.
And I don't see quite the attraction. I mean, I know that again, this is something that already is established. They get married later on, like she's in a forward in his book or whatever. So, but even that, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I felt that connection during the.
She feels like she's there because she must be.
Yeah,
right.
Good.
Yeah,
Without
end of
spoiling.
sorry, Evan, you go.
Sorry,
Evan, you go.
there's a motorcycle. I don't know what happened. Did that derail you?
No,
Sorry.
it was just Evan. Sorry, go ahead, Evan.
No, I was gonna say, Antoine, without spoiling anything, does the second film build on the relationship in any positive ways compared to this film?
I'd be surprised if she's in it.
They have so.
Is it better?
Okay, that sounds like a no.
Well, no. Okay,
maybe not then.
I'm gonna spoiler alert. His relationship with Lita is more interesting than it is with Tina, because Lita's in the second movie.
Yeah,
so
someone is also mentioned in this one
that's
as
a
well.
thing,
Yeah,
and
Okay.
it's weird. Okay, so yeah.
yeah, noted. But yeah, I just like the way they play off each other. Well, the core cast, like the way they bounce off and the different dynamics they have with one another. There was a particular moment. Just going back to that Legimency for a minute, where she is Goldie's looking in Queenie. Sorry, not Goldie. Queenie's looking into Newt's mind, and there's a moment where he says, "Could you not do that, please?" And then it
Right.
halts. And she's doing it again, but it doesn't indicate that in any way. And until he says, "I did ask you nicely not to do that." I love that moment. It's
And I love the way he talks to people. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like he's not
unfailingly
like, it's different.
nice.
He's a different kind of hero. Yeah.
And he's a
Different
Hufflepuff.
kind
You
of
know, this is the quintessential Hufflepuff hero, which
Right.
I really like. You know, it's giving that house some representation for once. But yeah, that moment, I liked. They didn't have to focus on it. They didn't have to have her, mouthing words or doing anything. It was just a case of, oh, we didn't know that she was still doing it until after the fact. It was a really a moment that played nicely. But yeah, we get those individual sequences with each of the characters interacting in different combinations in various ways, and I like that they spent time on each of them. Even though these are, as Connor said before, ancillary characters, they get the time that they need to kind of properly grow on us. And I certainly hope they come back in more depth for the next films, even though I doubt they will, as the focus shifts again.
It's like going.
Well,
back
that's the
to,
thing.
like,
We've got engaging characters, but not a story to do
Yeah,
anything with them.
Put
Right.
them in
That's a
the
problem.
setting they need to be. This should have been like the kind of springboard into like a magical creatures bonanza.
And it's
with
very
Newt.
dire. Like the tone is
Yeah.
very dire.
Yeah.
And the best parts of it is like Newt and Jacob just like running away from that hippo
Yeah.
beast or whatever because the mating sequence. That's
That-
like,
oh,
this is a joy. Can we just make this the
that
movie?
was a joy to watch. It was ridiculous, of course,
Why do we
and
have
played
to be
for
dark?
humor.
And then we like cut to another scene where
Yeah.
it's like super like
Yeah,
grim.
Newt doing that though.
You get tonal whiplash in this movie
Yeah,
so many times,
very
and
much
it's so unfortunate because those scenes, like you were
It's-
saying, those scenes that are done well are done really well.
Yeah, and
We just all wish there was more of them.
absolutely. And you mentioned that particular mating scene, Antoine. Like I love. Don't get me wrong, it's hilarious and ridiculous and just stupid. But I love that the focus of it and the focus of all of these kind of sequences with the magical creatures overall is the kind of the joy and the wonder of the magic. You
Yeah.
you see,
the Niffler
Yeah,
is amazing.
I know.
I love the Niffler.
and I love the
The
demiguise as
sequences
well.
where he's like, "No, my jewels."
The demiguise as
Yeah.
well is brilliant. Like I love the all of the creatures. I can't think of one that I particularly
Yeah, and
disliked.
then the Pick, or I think his name is Pick or Lock, or the green one.
Yeah, the Troblock.
The bow truckle.
Bowtruckle.
The bull truckle. Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. He gives him a name which I think is Pick or Lock. It's either Lock or Pick or something like that.
Yeah,
Something
but
like
it's
that.
adorable. I love the little characterizations they give each of these. But more importantly, I love how that we're getting that sense of wonder and joy that Newt feels towards his creatures through the interactions he's having with them, and as well because this is kind of the purpose of the character in the narrative. Jacob's sense, he's when he's just going into the case for the first time and he's seeing all of these magical creatures and
It's
the
like going to
environments.
Hogwarts for the first time.
Yeah, and he's like, could you just get some feed and just give them? He's like, oh yeah, sure. And he's like you happily going, wow, this is cool. Just that simple human moment. That's what the entire focus of this series should have been for me, and I think that it was definitely the strongest part of the film.
Yeah, and that's why I'm okay with the Credence because that does segue pretty well.
Yeah, it ties into
there's this
that.
weird creature that people don't understand. It's the whole thing that Newt is trying to get people to understand. Like we have to understand these things before we just criminalize them or think them demons or whatever. So that segue I think works pretty well. It's just that you don't need to have like Grindelwald, puppeteering
For me,
him.
this would
He
have.
should. Oops, sorry.
I'll let Connor go in a second, but I just want to say on the back of that, for me, that would have all been better had that been part of like the middle movie story. Like after, like maybe we get to know Credence, like and just have like this idea of what the dark creature is
Right.
in the background until it comes to the forefront. And because that would have, he doesn't feel like a character that I don't care about him as much as I should. and even Grindelwald like looks at him like a tool and not like if Grindelwald's like a kind of Magneto, he shouldn't be empathizing with this character, like genuinely care about him. And I know he says like words to that effect later on, like this is what we need to stake our banner on, like at the end when he's caught. But I don't really feel that until that point, and I don't even feel it then. But he's saying it, but I don't feel it.
Yeah, well, it's because earlier he's like sounding like a supervillain, like together we can accomplish. It's like really.
Yeah, it doesn't play.
No.
I like that you said that Magneto thing because it should be a Magneto thing. I think that'd be more interesting.
That's what he should.
It's what they're
Yeah,
trying. It's what's being attempted because even in the second movie, that's definitely what's being attempted. But then like his actions, are less empathetic than what Magneto does. Even though Magneto's also a villain, but
he goes from Magneto to Doctor Doom.
Well, Doctor Doom can be great, but Callan said earlier in a discussion I was having with him that like he can't believe that this is the guy that like Dumbledore fell in love with, like, and I get that. Like he should have that charm and that
charisma,
that Magneto like charisma, like to lead you, like you believe that he believes in his mission, and there are redeeming things about him that make the evil side hard to see. Here it's just okay. He's bad. Like I mean, I don't see the facade. I want to see the facade.
And it's not even unambiguously bad as well, because he's kind of like, what do you believe? Like, do you actually want to use this kid? Like, it bounces back and forth, both from him recognizing him and then when he realizes he's useful, it's like it jumps from scene to scene. And I would have much preferred if the entire concept of the Obscurus, which is a good one on paper, was more of a dark reflection of the realities of the magical world and the creatures in it. Newt is aware of the dangers. He's saying, we need to identify what we need to focus on, and like these creatures wonderful, magical. These creatures dangerous, need to be kept under control. And the Obscurus could have been the kind of central core to his argument towards conservationism in the magical world.
Saying that you can actually make this thing not be evil if you nurture it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or even just the identification of that as being one of the evil entities. However you want to play it, just have it be the focus of the story, so that this random dark force has a reason for being a part of the plot. And also the core focus of the characters.
That also would have made the storyline much more focused, because as far as the world-building department goes, what I found most interesting was this is what wizards in America are like. The Grindelwald stuff was pretty much all just crowbarred in, and it's pretty much what made everything so bad. The fact that it's like they had the whole meeting with the world leaders at all. Why couldn't this just be a purely local affair involving purely local players? Like, why does it have to be part of the bigger storyline of Grindelwald?
That's a valid question. It wouldn't be if he wasn't forced into the story, probably. It would have been, like you're saying, just a local government.
And again, that presentation of the world leaders, why are they all actively jumping on, Jacob's presence in the room? Like, is this really how the world is? It can't be that what we've been introduced to earlier in the series with the UK's presentation of the magical community is just the exact opposite of everyone else. That does not make sense. And these questions, I know that they're not a major component of the film, I know, but they need to be addressed, because this is the foundation of the setting moving forward, and it's not a good one at the moment.
And the other thing is that it's inconsistent, because the UK is the country that actually had an internal civil war over blood purity. That's what Voldemort's rise to power was. It was basically the wizarding world, Wizard UK's internal civil war.
Well, granted, that came afterwards, so that wouldn't have affected this point necessarily. But you're right in terms of the narrative sense. If you're leading up to that point in the kind of overarching story of the setting, don't lay these foundations. But yeah, I get where you're coming from. But yeah, where do we want to go head next? Because we've talked about Koreans, we've talked about the main cast. Grindelwald, we've kind of dived into. Yeah, the plot overall is a bit.
This movie's been out for 2 years.
Yeah, it's stop and start and unfocused.
Go into hyper detail.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of the Fantastic Beasts portion of it, it's basically him reacquiring the 3 creatures that escaped, which was the snaky one in the attic, the hippo one in the zoo. I forget what the other one was. Oh, the invisible one?
The
invisible one.
Yeah. That kind of solved itself, but it was also a problem that needed fixing.
Right.
They stumbled across the snake one by accident. He quote unquote miscounted. Somehow.
Can I ask a really, really, really dumb question? I've had a really hard time paying attention to this movie. Like I said, why did he come to America in the first place?
He was looking to get the Thunderbird
to
Arizona for whatever reason.
He wanted to release it back.
That's natural environment.
Reason.
Yeah, it was taken from there. Yeah, so that's the original reason. He gives a fake reason ahead of that.
Right? Wasn't it poachers that he said?
Yeah, they
Something like
want
that,
to
yeah.
capture
So
them.
he really just does like sort of bumble into this Grindelwald thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
yes,
like that.
completely.
Very much so.
Okay.
You know, if
Like,
it'd
if
been
he
if it'd been
didn't
sent to
switch
kind
his
of
cases
to do some,
with
if it'd been sent as a spy
Jacob.
from the start by Dumbledore, you could you just go out here and be like an agent. You know, I need someone out there that I can trust. That it would still have been shoehorned in, but at least it would have made sense that he encounters this story. So they didn't even give us that. Although it sounds obviously like they're trying to work that into the second film a little bit too late.
Yeah, that connection he has with Dumbledore, that mission, because we spoke again, like this isn't the character. He's very likable, and like I like Newt, and I also like Neville, but I wouldn't mobilize Neville against Voldemort.
Yeah.
I wouldn't send Harry if I didn't have to send Harry. I have to send Harry because he's linked to Voldemort. But I mean, it's like
you would send a Kingsley, or you would
Yeah,
send
or a
Mad-Eye,
few.
or
that-
all of
the
it.
entire
That's-
Hogwarts
that's-
staff.
that's another
Like, you
part
have
as
to
well,
get off
actually.
to take care of this.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah.
I know this was only
I
one
do-
film and it didn't have the amount of time that it required to kind of sell the rest of the background cast, but I never at one point felt any connection to any of the characters that wasn't the main cast. Like, there was no McGonagall in this for me. There was no Snape. There was no...
all the side characters.
All the side characters are forgettable nothings, but at the same time, they're still somehow capable of doing these magical things that were supposed to be standouts in the original series. They create that shield. I know it's a smaller scale, but they create that shield at the end of the film.
Yeah.
And like, that was supposed to be a big
the
deal.
power scaling in this film's a bit,
It's
when compared to the other films.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
not
Very,
and it's not a
very,
massive.
very little verbal magic.
Yes, as well.
I have another.
that's fine. They're adults, so that makes sense.
I have another maybe dumb question. You know that part like toward the end where Graves is like zapping Newt?
Yeah, why
Like,
doesn't he
the
just kill him?
electricity,
Yep.
yeah.
Why didn't he just kill him? Like,
No
Yeah.
clue.
Out of cadaver? Is that answered, or is that like a
No.
valid complaint?
A valid complaint, as far as I'm concerned. Unless he has
No, I don't think
unless
that's
he doesn't
answered.
want to kill
It was in
wizards
the
or
book.
something.
I think it's more of a plot like, oh, we can't kill him right now. We'll just make him wounded.
And it went
It
on
just
for
went
so
on so
long.
I was
Yeah.
like,
Right.
just kill him. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was really irritating and really awkward to watch as well. Like, just it didn't feel you didn't feel the emotion of the moment in the right way you would think they're supposed to be aiming for. Speaking of that though, just because I think otherwise it'll get overlooked, can we address the insanity of that execution scene and what that was supposed to be in this film? Like, take them
like,
to
they
be
were killing him
executed
for-
on the
what was
spot.
the
I
reason
was like,
too?
what?
He got blamed. They got blamed. The beast. got
Oh, for
blamed.
killing the Muggle. That's right.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
But
Okay.
but even
But yeah,
so,
on the
they
spot
just
is
on the
crazy,
spot
yeah.
execution. That's part of. I mean, even if he was undermining the authority, there are people there that were perfectly happy to just take them and execute them on the spot on the whim of one person. What?
Yeah, that
And
was
in the
really
most cruel
odd.
way possible. Let's talk to you with some horrible memories of your failure as in the time you lost your job before
Yeah,
dropping
it's
you
a
in
weird way, 'cause
burning acid
it
or whatever it
wasn't
is.
like, the thing about or I don't know what system you guys have in the UK. In California, we do a lethal injection, which
We don't have
is
execution.
supposed to be. I mean, I've never done it before. I haven't died before or anything like that. Or I haven't had that, so I don't know. But they say
Really?
they
That
say
surprises
it's
me.
painless, but it's supposed to be
Humane. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a humane way to off someone, And then with the wizards, yeah, like you were saying, you have like you get to see your best memories as you're being burnt by it's weird.
Well, not
it
just
was
your best, it was
weird.
one of your worst memories because she was fired for that.
No,
job.
it was worse. Right,
Yeah,
and
so
then
it
she
was kind of a
changed
bit of
her
both,
best
though,
because-
yeah, 'cause
Well,
it
it
was
started
bad.
off
Well,
with the good
that's the
memories,
thing.
but then it got altered when the wine fell in and the weird
No,
silver
yeah, it starts with good,
liquid.
it's supposed to make you
liquid
complacent
came up.
to being burnt. Yeah.
Yeah, it was supposed to make you
Being
commit
burnt, is that
suicide
what-
in this horribly
I don't know, it looked
burning,
like
like
burnt.
it looked like
Well, I
boiling
mean,
tar
burnt to
in
ash.
terms of its, it burns the wand up. It's horrific, and even if and that's
Yeah,
fine,
it's right.
if that's part
That's
of the
the-
theme, if that's part of the tone, that's fine, no problem with that. You can go as dark as you want, but this is not supposed to be that dark a film, and even if it is, this scene is not spelling that out for you. It's playing off like this, emotional, like jump, I'll catch you, we're friends, and it's like, what is this? Meanwhile, you've got creepy,
that kind
smiling nurses just like, it's fine,
Yeah.
isn't it wonderful?
That
This
kind
is
of
all
ap-
nice.
That kind of apparatus belongs in like the domain of your antagonist,
Yeah.
not like the government you're trying to uphold. If that
Right.
was like some kind of tool that they had like to punish witches and wizards that were caught by like this Salem thing, like that makes sense because it's punitive and like especially so. But this, especially in a world where you literally have painless death, like curse, and I'll just kill you. Like with the Avada Kedavra, it's like that's
Right.
the most humane way to kill somebody if you're going to do that.
Which is ironic because to cast that spell, you have to feel immense rage and hate. And,
I know what you mean,
so
but
it's
you
just
get what
like,
I'm
what?
saying. Just-
Yeah, no, of course, yeah,
Like,
but it's
you can-
ironic
yeah,
in that sense.
you're right on that point. But yeah, it's just like what? And surely like they could just give them poison as
Yeah.
like painless.
Yeah.
if you had
liquid
to,
death
and also like
exists
why are
in
they
this
even
world.
doing this though? Like why are they even? They shouldn't even be doling out this punishment to begin with. Aside from the fact that they're mindless drones, apparently for the plot.
It's just
But,
it baffled me, and I thought this is really inappropriate for this kind of this story and what's being told. This is a story about fantastic beasts and where to find them has like a horrific
Right.
torture execution scene.
I never thought about
Not so-
I never
not
thought
so
about the
fantastic.
6-year-old that went to go see this, like
Yeah.
with their mom and dad, and just wound up with this. So yeah, that is pretty heavy.
and I
Not
have
so
no
fantastic anymore.
Yeah, and I want to stress, I have no problem with it going dark. I have no problem with it going super dark, but at least have some sort of tonal, impact behind it. Have some focus, have some reason for this happening in the moment when it does, and to the characters that it does happen to. It's so out of nowhere, and it didn't, it doesn't seem to be raising red flags for people. It was like, this is strange. But yeah, so I had to mention that.
It's definitely very strange for sure.
Mm.
The second half of the plot is mostly the Grindelwald Cretan stuff, and first the red herring of we think that's like the little girl,
Yeah.
like that this huge dark entity, whatever it is, and then it revealed later that it's Credence. I might like the idea of this Obscurial like on its own, like the idea that if someone is suppressed and not able to let their magic out, it turns into something very dark and grim. That itself, I think it was fine.
It's a good concept on
Especially
paper.
the
It's just
idea-
the nature of the context provided here. The execution is just off. We don't care about these characters because they're just from the start being the tools for Graves. Who at that point we don't even know why he's doing what he's doing. We don't know he's Grindelwald at the very start, and he's just this random like arsehole-ish aura that is for some reason want to starting this revolution with this specific character rather than just going out and doing it himself. If he wants to reveal the magical world, all he has to do is go out and start blasting spells on a large scale. He doesn't need this super powerful creature for that. So his motivation is unclear from the start, from either character's perspective.
That's why I think it makes sense if you make him a Magneto that genuinely cares about his constituency
And wants to bring him into the fold. Right?
Yeah.
And that's actually that would be a good thematic thing to do too, because the Credence is looking for, anyone who has an Obscurus within them, just needs some love or just an outlet, you know?
Yeah.
So he can be giving him another version of that. It might not be the most healthy one, kind of similar to what we were talking about with Palpatine a little bit, playing into that, except not as maniacal and evil. Definitely, I would say Magneto would be the better way to go about it. But it would be good to have those two sides, like Newt's way of appealing to him, and then Grindelwald's way of appealing to him. That would have been a cool, interesting dynamic to watch play out.
And it adds legitimacy to the argument of Grindelwald as well. The threat he poses to the world because he can actually inspire people in that horrible Magneto way. It makes him so much more impactful.
I could easily believe that he genuinely does care because they left the door open with Dumbledore's sister and that whole mess because she could be one,
Yeah. It wouldn't fit the context of her being allowed to let it out, but yeah, it's the same sort of theme being played with there, and just the idea that because at the end of the film they seem to be aiming him towards he cares, like when he's talking to the Obscurus as it kind of quote unquote dying, he's like, yeah, no, it's fine, ignore her, and you guys, if you shoot her, you'll answer to me, and like they seem to be playing off as though he cares, but up until the point that he knows that he's the Obscurus, he couldn't care for that thing at all. And doesn't seem to be ultimately caring about the girl even, outside of the one scene. It's like he wants to use this force for this power. He wants to use this power for his own needs and his own whatever his point is in the argument. He wants to use it for that, driving that force forward however he intends to. But at the end, it shifts from that to being I care about the force itself rather than what the tool it represents. It just never sits and never gives us that core focus.
Can I just say something in general? It's not related to that, but that scene, like the ending scene. If you're applying for a job with like any sort of agency, that agency should just cast Revelio on you to see if you are who you say you are. Because it would be so easy to just not be who you are throughout your entire daily life if you were a wizard. Just saying. Polyjuice
is overused.
Yeah,
like
it is.
If
that even was
like a
Polyjuice,
sequel comment.
Yeah.
It is.
On that topic, I really like. While we are going on and on and on about how the Grindelwald aspect of this plot is the weakest aspect, I really liked Colin Farrell in the role.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yes,
And
definitely.
I'm disappointed that they switched over to Johnny Depp. And the reason why I think they could have totally made this fly is because when you watch the start of the movie, the impression I had is that Grindelwald was anonymous. No one knew who he was or what he looked like. The only person who could identify him was Dumbledore, and he wasn't coming after him for reasons. So it's like he could just be concealing his identity through very simplistic means, like just dyeing his hair, and that's literally all he's doing. And they just keep Colin Farrell with his Alexander hair for the rest of the series.
But even simple stuff.
And he's really subdued. I liked some of the performance. Like for the interrogation scene, for instance, there was a moment. I think Tina was about to say something. He's like,
he puts his
like,
finger in
like
his
a very
mouth.
subtle. It was oh, yeah, that's right. It was finger to
the
the
mouth.
mouth.
Finger to the mouth is what it was.
So
Yeah.
good.
That's the kind of power I wanted Voldemort to have on screen.
Oh my
and not
God,
be screaming all the time.
Right.
Because that's exactly what I wanted. I love the way he played. I love the way it was directed. Whatever the credit you want to give to it, like the collaboration. That to me is a proper antagonist, like one that you can believe, and has power. Quiet
and that could
power.
be fair. It'd be cool if that he was the one who had the quiet power, and then Voldemort was trying to achieve that, and was kind of like the neo-Nazi of that time period. And he's like, look at me, I'm so great. So that could still work thematically. And then like Grindelwald's the one who's like the OG, who's like, nah, you don't have to do that. Young one, you don't.
To be fair, there's a little bit of that dynamic even in the book.
Yeah, a little bit.
It is. But
alluded to, but it would be nice if they played that up a little bit more.
Yeah, sit down, little boy is the kind of
right. But yeah, Colin Farrell did really, really well. Even when he was at the alley scene with Credence, the way he was like hovering around him, he had, like
looming,
his arm on the wall,
over
and just,
the kid. Yeah,
his presence was so good. It was so good.
Very well done.
Yeah, I agree. While Grindelwald itself, like the storyline that is attached to this movie, wasn't my favorite, his performance is probably my favorite, actually, in the entire movie, actually, because it was so nuanced and just so delectable.
In terms of what they did with it, I agree. I prefer the performances from other people in terms of the characters they're portraying, but yeah, in terms of the kind of layered depth to what he's doing, pure performance level. You're right. He did a lot more.
I think it's good on its own, but I give it more credit than I normally even would because it's a concept that to me I'm already not in favor of. So like for it to win me over, it has to be really good, which it did.
Because we are discussing the film, the one other detail of Graves that I actually found myself really liking was his wardrobe. I loved his duds.
Clean.
Yeah, because the cool thing about it is that it was kind of, they were designed for like three purposes. It's like on the one hand, blend in as a muggle so he can walk on the streets without raising any eyes, but still giving away that he is a wizard with some subtle details like the split sleeves and the slightly exaggerated shoulders. But also the fact that what he was wearing was basically a kind of a bulky suit. Well, it basically made him look not only like he was a Nazi, but as if he was straight up an SS officer.
Wardrobe design in general,
for sure.
yeah, agreed. And wardrobe design in general, I think, was a really good part of this film. There are a few exceptions from my personal taste, but
and the production design in general was
the overall look was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, funny enough. But
sorry.
Even the beasts though, the fantastic beasts were fantastically animated. There are a few blips for me, but for the most part, they felt very real and very well done. The fact that he had to create like that emotional connection between them and Newt, I felt they did the interactions very well, even with the close-ups.
No, yeah, they definitely studied like actual like zoologists, like behavioral, stuff in preparation for the role.
Sorry, that one scene where he's just doing that mating thing came to mind as he said that.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like it comes off as very professional.
Yes,
it's
yeah.
I like the presentation in this movie a lot, the sound design and the visuals. There was stuff that even made me a little bit like uncomfortable, but I thought was still well done, like the house elf lounge singer. I didn't need that in my life, but it was still well done.
The bar. I was actually thinking about the bar scene too. I thought that was actually cool, and then the way they got into it too with like the poster, like letting them in. Like I thought that was actually like pretty clever and nice. But even seeing like the underground, like who are the mobsters, wizards of this time period? I thought that was actually pretty cool. Except his fingers freaked me the freak out. The goblin, because they were like bent backward. I was like, what's going on there? What? But yeah, all that stuff I think the aesthetic
I liked him
is
as well. Like as a character, I mean, I didn't like him personally.
As his little one-off.
I liked him. Like in the scene, that was good. I think I'm racist against goblins though, which like they seem very
sketchy.
yeah.
Like because the whole thing in the lore is that you have to honor your agreements with them, but they seem built in not to do it to you. Like it's like a catch-22. They try to always have their cake and eat it too, is what they're doing. That's what I've noticed. But in any case,
they were the original trolls. So
Oh gosh.
the trolls, not the original trolls.
Which there is a troll in the room, I think, as well. In
well,
the
there's like a
background.
grim, like the one with the bridge and the troll under the bridge or whatever, and it's a gremlin or whatever. Yeah, like that kind of troll, not like the big giant troll.
You have to pay the troll toll.
But I think that this is the big battle scene. I think we kind of touched up on it. The power levels being scaled.
Yeah,
strangely.
It's just it's not even that unrealistic. Like, in your head, it's not unreasonable to think that like 10 wizards could conjure up a shield that covers that smaller space. That's not the problem I have with it. But it's the fact that shield very much is a callback to the Hogwarts shield that the best witches and wizards of the UK were putting up together, not counting the films like inclusion of Molly Weasley, for example. It doesn't.
I feel like
it caused the wrong
relied on
ideas.
that a lot in the film a little bit, like where like it's not really like a problem. It's just notable. I remember I'm almost certain that in book or in movie 3, like Harry, while he's invisible, he grabs like a lollipop from somebody.
Yeah, he does.
Honeydukes.
He does. Yeah,
he does.
There's like a floating lollipop in this one. It's the same color, like when like the invisible creature like took it. You know what I mean? So it's like. There are things like that. I made mental notes, but I forgot them because it's me. So they did a lot of that kind of, even if it was just purely visual callbacks to this stuff. And I don't know if that's some kind of subliminal fan service or just we established this is what it looks like, or if they already just had the tech developed to just replicate that effect that we already did.
Well, I mean, but they also continue Prio and Cantatum.
Priori and Cantatum drives me
first of all,
insane.
Yeah.
It's like, can we get rid of this abomination, please? It does not make sense in the lore. It looks horrific on screen. It takes away all the imagination of the fight. And even before then,
why does she include it if she's the writer?
I don't know. Like, she had the ability to affect the screenwriting in this one.
Like I was saying, she's George Lucasing right now.
It's horrible. Like, and even aside from that, just the one work in general. For one, they keep dropping the ones in this film a lot. One work is not very present.
Like I said, no verbal, like almost all nonverbal.
Yeah, they carry that over. That's supposed to be difficult to do. Some wizards never learn how to do it properly, and it's like no, everyone can do it now because we don't want to have to spend time.
Well, I mean, we're dealing with Tina, who's
or
in training, so she's
an
fine.
New
actually does verbalize a lot of his spells though, like the one where he was trying to get the Niffler back. He does. I forget what spell it was, but he did verbalize it. Graves obviously should not be speaking his spells, so that's fine. Who else does spell work in this?
It's not very prevalent because they keep dropping their wands. they very rarely have the wands available.
I think Queenie does it too, doesn't she?
She does, but that's when she's just making the food, and that's fine. That's
and Alohomora, and she. To be fair, I'm not giving them enough credit on that one. Yeah.
All the time. Like even if it's just like Molly Weasley making dinner, she's not saying anything, and she's just doing stuff. That's fine with me.
Yeah, specific things I'm fine with it. Just overall, it specifically spelled it out as being a difficult challenge for people, and just to have for every single spell on hand. I'd always liked the kind of appeal of it. But more than that, more important.
I have the impression most people that are like even marginally good at magic are like this is possible for them. It's not like the master tier like kind of ability. It's not uncommon.
I think the whole idea with nonverbal spells is that it probably works better with spells that you're more familiar with and when you're in a stress-free environment. So using magic to cook a meal non-verbally, not a problem. Using non-verbal spells in a wizard's duel, most people can't do that because it's the stress of the fight.
That's the way I've always looked at it. Yeah,
that's
like,
fine,
stirring a
but
pot
like
is
who
easy.
Who in this film isn't at that level?
Well, that's what Callan was saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was being
overly
harsh.
Yeah.
I'd misjudged
when I was
it,
listing it off, I was like, well, Tina, she should.
Yeah, I was wrong on that one. Yeah, but it wasn't wrong though. The more important thing that I was more concerned with, because again, the non-verbal thing I can pass off, movie specialization, whatever. Even though it does actually do its job right here, is the laser blast. Let me all just fire a white spark, white spark.
There was one point when he like pulled the card, and I was like, yeah, he did something. He did something different.
I know. It's like, that's actually another reason why I did even though the Wizards duels in this show still keep up the same problems that Wizards duels have always had, I did like that they at least did deviate from that a little bit with Graves himself. Like, I loved how Graves was using his wandless telekinesis, and I loved how it's I loved how he took down Newt before he started doing the stupid thing, but blasting him with lightning, when he just ripped apart the train tracks and hurled him through the air and knocked him off his ass. I liked that. It's like, but then they just went into him blasting him with force lightning instead of just Avada Kedavra.
But even that, though, it's all telekinesis
too, especially for the second movie, because Avada Kedavra
Yeah, they don't know how to use that.
There's a thing
even
about
in
erotic,
books,
yeah.
even in film 7, Harry's Protegoing away Avada Kedavra like all the way up the staircase. He's like, what are you doing?
But ironically, that's actually one of the more exciting things they ever do.
Yeah.
Like in that series, so I can forgive it on the level of just being visually exciting. I know lore-wise it's dead in the water.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to
Well,
touch
actually,
that.
my justification for that scene is that Voldemort wasn't using Avada Kedavra. He was literally just blasting Harry with baseline stun spells. It's
That
just
happened to be green.
Happened to green.
Yeah, that happened to be
Well,
green,
come
and
on,
there's
it's
also Voldemort. He's
I
actively
have
trying to
his
kill
spell
him.
effects to be green. He'd
But
do
why
it.
would? But in the moment when he's doing it,
What's-
like the look in his eyes is I want you dead. Like that. Like now. Like he wouldn't be stunning anyone. When's he ever stunned anyone?
What was the
Yeah.
purpose? He wanted him
We'll
dead.
get to that. Well,
But yeah, that's the whole thing.
portion,
Yeah, but as well,
And the reason I like that moment, by the way, though, that's one of my favorite Ray Fiennes moments. It's just I'm not screaming or doing "Meow, Harry Potter." I'm just looking at you like I want you
and
dead.
just
That's like-
raging. Yeah, I loved it. But the other thing as well, like even with the little variation that they do, while I like the the ripping of the tracks up and the front of the car, it's all telekinesis. They never play with the abstract
Right.
like potential of magic.
Not a lot of transfiguration
no
ever.
transfiguration, no
Yeah,
conjuration, no just general manipulation of or cancellation of spells. Someone launching a spell at you and you reflecting it back, or just disassembling it midair as it comes towards you. There are so many different things you can play with in this, and they don't do any of it.
I will love someone who like a specialization in like disapparating mid fight. Like maybe it's difficult for most people to do, but I would like to see someone like that'd be cool. Seeing them go and then like try to with a spell. Like that'd be fun.
It would be cool if they also didn't have that done by most people anyway on a lesser level. Just jumping around and smoking all over the place in the original films. Like they've always consistently ruined magic in the films for me. It's a big problem.
Well, it's like there's one thing that as a Harry Potter wizard that I think, like, I wonder why they don't do even in the book series, is that there are so many spell effects that are described as being unblockable through magical means. So you don't even need to do something as dramatic as transfiguring the objects around you to come alive. Maybe just enchant certain objects to just orbit around you magically, and then you would just use those as physical shields. It's like, okay, someone's blasting me with Avada Kedavra. I can't block it with a spell, but I can say levitate this rock in the way and let the spell destroy it instead of me.
Or just have a perpetual like a Kreia. Like you can just have like a perpetual fucking thing revolving around your head, and anytime you see something coming, you're like, all right, let me move that down, let me move that one down, and that will visually look cool too.
Just
it's
conjure
like an
up
avatar
a wall.
ball,
Yeah,
an avatar state ball.
Just conjure up a wall. There are so many things you can do to make this more creative, even if some of them are cheesy or stupid. There, just the fact that we've come up with these ideas off the top of our head tells you that there is so much more depth to this.
That's just a variation of the statue, really. It's just a different like incarnation of it.
It's even the idea of incorporating verbal spells into there could still be made cool if maybe you make it so maybe the wizard in question is just having a constant run-on sentence of spells, just one after the other, no gaps in his speech, where it's almost like it's just a single word, but it's actually just multiple different spells, one after the other. So it's like, Avada Kedavra, Protego, blah, 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 but just going, just the chains.
It's just so boring, too, like, just like watching that. Like, I mean, you want some variation in the visuals, and I can understand that if you're at Harry's level, maybe you only know like a few spells. So like you're not, but we're always dealing like with professionals now. Like, I mean, can we do something, please? Like,
exactly.
And even if they do want to go with the gunfight mentality, there are far better gunfight sequences in general.
Just on the direction level, just tracking the shots of how they present it.
Even if they keep it all as direct energy-based spells and ignore the possibilities of transfiguration, they could at least vary their spell effects. Like maybe have some of them be jets of flame or something.
Yeah, just different colors. I mean, this is all just white sparks. The entirety of this film. It drives me mad. But stepping away from that for a second, just because I looked at the notes and realised there was a term that I questioned actually in the film itself. What is Makusa? Is that the magical community of the USA?
Yes.
Is that really it?
I got
nailed it. Like,
wow.
perfectly.
You got it perfectly.
Yeah,
the
like,
United States of America.
Wow. Okay, then. I mean, I suppose that's all right. I kept coming up in the film. I don't think it was it ever explained in the film, or am I?
I think so.
I think
Probably.
I think it's inferred, or maybe it was said in like a brief line, really quick.
Yeah, I think it was explained because like I was able to follow that, and I was kind of on autopilot this time.
But then that's not really the government, surely. That's just everyone in the USA that's magical. But they say the Makusa's coming. It's like, surely you are part of the Makusa then.
I think they referred that as the ministry and all that.
Is there
there's a ministry.
No, I said it's their ministry.
Yeah.
It's their
Wikipedia's vague with the Ministry of Magic, and they just have their specific nation one. At least to say nothing else, they're at least more competent than the Ministry, from what we can see. That's worth noting.
That's not hard.
That's a pretty low bar.
Yeah, although the ambassador / minister of magic for the UK in that scene, I found very enjoyable. Like, he's like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Like, I loved how blasé he was about everything. It's like not seemingly caring about the problem in front of his face. A nice reflection of the original material for that one. That just came up in my head because I wasn't actually sure when I was watching the film. Nice to know I guessed right though.
Right. That's it. I mean, the finale is the finale. Like, the reveal of Johnny Depp was like one of my least favorite things when I first watched it. Yeah. I mean, I already knew that he was a part of it, but seeing what he was doing. You didn't? Oh my god!
I realized
that was even worse for you.
I knew that Grindelwald was going to be like the reveal, but I just thought that was going to be Colin Farrell. Like, I'm not Graves, I'm Grindelwald. Then it was like, oh no, it's not even the same actor.
Yeah, and then he has that weird makeup thing. And the thing I don't like about his aesthetic is that he looks like Voldemort in the sense that he's like this pale, pasty, white villain, and it's not like an interesting. Like, I thought it would be better, especially with Dumbledore having this relationship with him, that he's just a normal dude. Going back. So glad you brought up Magneto, because Magneto is such a perfect.
Yeah, he's the perfect analog. It's the Charles and Magneto analog. Yeah, that's exactly what they're supposed to be.
Especially like Magneto from First Class. You're supposed to look like what's the actor's name? Oh my god, what's his name?
Michael Fassbender.
I should think you're pretty dreamy. You know what I mean? And Colin Farrell, to me, is a pretty dreamy dude, And then like Johnny Depp with his like demented look, I'm like, okay, I'm not down.
Johnny Depp.
I was like young Johnny Depp maybe, but he doesn't play this kind of characters. He plays like always like offbeat.
Yeah, he's quirky at the very least.
Not Willy Wonka Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. I sent a picture to Matt before the recording about it.
This looks a little bit more like looks more like Willy Wonka Johnny Depp than young Johnny Depp. Yeah, so this is in the wrong direction.
But also, just because I meant to mention this earlier, with that reveal, like, is he actually Graves? Has he killed Graves and taken his place? Like, we never actually get that resolution. Presumably Graves existed and then was just killed and he's dead somewhere in his house. But we don't actually know that. So he could have literally just been Graves the entire time.
Yeah, that's why I made the joke that you should just Revelio everyone that applies just like to your agency, because like to me I'm Graves. I just made up this entire persona and
it could be that I think Graves already existed, so they already would have thought like, oh cool. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, every day they come into the office, there should be some sort of like
archway you have to walk through and just precisely.
The funny thing is that I was reading somewhere that like just an explanation, like, how wands from other people that aren't aligned to you don't work exactly right for you? Like, this article was basically saying that the reason why Grindelwald made such heavy use of wandless magic throughout this movie is because he was carrying around Graves's stolen wand, but he didn't gain its allegiance.
That should be a scene. That should be a scene.
Why, because
that would help.
So he was leaning on wandless magic because he didn't want to use this wand that didn't work right for him because...
And just hope that Graves was capable of wandless magic.
But he can also be thinking in the back of his mind, like, I've got my eyes on another one. Somebody could ask him, like, why don't you try?
He already has at this point. He has another one at this point. Yeah, so he stole it from Gregorovich, right?
Yeah, Gregorovich.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that it's almost like they in the
He's
film.
Had it for 20 years. Like by the time that.
Yeah, and Dumbledore's just doing nothing about it. Dumbledore's just walking through his life, knowing that he's out there.
They try to make an explanation for that.
In the next
film. Try.
I'm sure they do. We'll see. How
they try, but do they succeed? I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
You guys will see in our next review.
Yes, which will be next weekend.
Right.
But
cool. So this is wrapping up, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much wrapping up. There was something I wanted to mention there. Sorry, random point. Just because we mentioned the wandless thing and the tracking thing. Did anyone else find it weird that they could do? Tina could just. Is it Tina? It is Tina. Yeah, Tina Goldstein.
That's her name,
that she could just walk into every single meeting with the higher ups. Like, is there nobody on guard duty here? She just walks into a meeting with the UN, and they're like, "I hope this is important."
Basically, the UN.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
There was a small thing that kept coming up and like multiple times throughout the story, and just because we mentioned.
But it could be that she does work there though, so. And she had something important.
She has like UN meeting clearance. She can just walk in there. Anyway, bizarre. It was just because we mentioned the ministry's competence, so I just wanted to bring it up when you said the tracking thing. But yeah, that's that. My thoughts have pretty much all been given. I've got nothing else to say.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that really got me at the end, in particular, although even the rain thing, like making all the Muggles forget the water, and like
that was
that's
weird.
very flawed. Like, not everyone's gonna
Be in the rain, and apparently people are inside the
like,
house
some
and
people
still
left town
not
already. You know what I mean? Like
Left-
that doesn't work.
Yeah, left
But,
town, but they're also
what I
inside the
did-
house, and they're still getting the effects somehow. But then Jacob
Right, yeah,
doesn't
there were some
until
people
he
who were
goes
just, like,
into the
reading
rain.
newspaper, and they were like,
Yeah,
it's
but
like, wait, what?
But Jacob
I guess you're in
doesn't
the
until he
shower.
goes into the
Like-
rain. Like what? What is this? This makes
Right,
no sense.
right. But I did like
Water
at the
mon-
end there.
go through the air. Into the
Like I was
house.
saying, the core of it being about compassion, friendship. There's a line Jacob says, like, "Yeah, why did you, like keep me around?" And he's like, "Because you're my friend." You know, what I mean, like just simple like that. And that got me. I remember watching it the first time, and that was like a good ending, I think, for me. And then him in his bakery, and then kind of subverting the.
Yeah, did he
Sean
remember?
wife.
Did he remember? Did Legend of the Girl
Because-
kind of give him a helping hand there? I hope so.
Oh,
because they're cool.
she helps.
Oh,
But
is that coming
I
up?
like that at
Excellent.
the end. It was like there's a hint of like, oh, I know. Like I like that. I like the heart. The heart
Yeah.
of the core is very nice.
Yeah, I didn't mean to overlook that
That's
bit.
a good.
That
It's a
moment,
good relationship.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. That scene itself was really nice. I liked the execution. I really wish they just stepped in and go, you know what? Screw the government. We're keeping you. I don't care if
Yeah,
you. If
yeah.
you,
I was hoping that was gonna happen too.
Yeah, it's like, why are you following this rule? It's a stupid
Yeah.
rule. I come from a country
Exactly.
where it
And he
very
doesn't
clearly
agree,
works.
He doesn't agree with it. Like he established that he
Yeah.
does not agree with it.
Yeah,
it's
so-
like,
It's like, and the funny thing is that he could very well have just done that and said, it's like, okay, Jacob, do you have your passport in your back pocket? Yeah. Okay, great. Get on this ship with me. We're going to the UK. It's totally fine for you to know about wizards over there.
Yeah, or just stay and hide. What's the ministry going to know
You know,
about it? It's just
it's like
it's
that-
annoying.
That's the other thing. It's the fact that, the ministry could have just said, like, Tina could have just pulled some strings and said, okay, we're not going to obliviate him and we're not going to kill him. We're going to deport him. Newt, you're babysitting.
Yeah, just joining up with him, or just staying behind and keeping a secret. Or just the ministry saying, "I'll make an exception. For everything you've done, I'll make this one exception." She's supposed to have that power as president, of this community.
It's like she can
supposedly.
just issue that pardon, or maybe just write up something.
And if not, if she doesn't have that ability, are we really saying that there's not a single person in the entirety of the United States of America that knows, that doesn't know about magical community and is also integrated with it? That's
Well,
ridiculous.
that's the funny thing about it to me is that like there's like an anti-witch group in a world where they supposedly don't know that this exists. So,
Yeah. Well, it's
Talk about
another
muddling the
aspect of
themes.
it's another aspect about how this movie is trying to do too many things at once. It's like the whole plot of prejudice against witches and wizards and the Salem witch trials as they played out in the Harry Potter setting could have made for an interesting story. They just should have made the story all about the frickin' Salem witch trials.
Foundation of Ilvermorny, that kind of thing. How the struggles they had.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Again, it doesn't have to all be in one series. You could spread it out.
yeah, you can.
Exactly. It's like that's the problem with this movie. It's trying to cram in too much world building when it would have been better served by dialing it back and focusing.
Yep.
It's like focus on the Fantastic Beasts and focus on Newt's shenanigans in New York and his clashing with the local government. Leave it at that. You don't need to make it about Grindelwald. You don't need to make it all about wizard society in America.
Small-
And like you guys were saying, like actually expanding it by expanding it to different people.
Precisely.
One of Callan always is touting. What is that freaking fanfiction you keep touting that you call canon?
Dumbledore's Army and the
Dumbledore's
Year of
Army.
Darkness. Terrible title,
Yeah,
great
Year
fan
of
fiction.
Darkness. Employ some of these people and let see what they can do. And they also can kind of revitalize you, I think, too, in a way. Because if you're too tunnel vision with it, then yes, you get the Lucas effect.
That's
Yeah,
the
well,
reason why
but
the
can you
that's the
imagine-
reason.
yeah.
That's the
Can you
reason why
imagine the
this-
EU if Lucas had written everything?
Oh God, it would be terrible.
That's what we're looking at a little bit right now, though. Like she's
Yeah.
doing this.
Yeah,
It's
just
like-
keep
it
keep like Connor said, keep the focus on the small scale stories with a solid foundation around them, and let the world splinter out from that in the many branches.
And you can
Don't-
be executive producer. You can
Yeah.
oversee all this. You
Yeah,
don't
give
have
final
to
clearance
be
and final stamp on
in the
everything.
trenches.
Yeah, just
Right.
and keep shaping Pottermore in his little ways. Like have someone write an article and then say, yeah, this is fine. Let's just tweak this, tweak that, and you will build a wonderful world, and it will be consistent.
Yeah.
But instead, we've got this
It's-
that just completely throws that out the window.
Well, it's like the greatest expanded universes are created as collaborative efforts between multiple individuals.
Yeah.
Same with George R.R. with what he's doing right now with what was that book he came out, World of Ice and Fire. That was two fans who brought that, who came with him with that idea because they were really into it and they were wondering like, what was going on in this section of the world? Well, he's like, oh, I have all these like little notes, and then they helped make that a thing, and he did it in collaboration with them. It wasn't like him doing it on his own.
What he did was like he created two fans that were arguably more interested in his world than he is.
Yes.
And that's what happened.
Yeah,
Not even. They are.
Yeah,
more
but that's
interested.
the thing. That's not an unlikely occurrence. You know, that's not rare. Most fans of like the true hardcore, dedicated, like 100%
Like it
near
more than the
obsessive fans
creators.
like it more
but
than
to
the
work with
creator.
them, though.
Because
But to work
of course,
with them, that's
no,
uncommon.
of course,
and
that's
what,
amazing.
That's
yeah.
what should be happening here. She's built into
Absolutely.
that. She has like the best-selling thing ever. Just like there's many fans that would help you make this a thing.
Without
Please do
question,
that.
without question. But just that
it was said-
nature.
Nothing wrong with reaching out.
It summed up like neatly with something Connor said before we started recording, and I think it's that there's nothing wrong with the Harry Potter EU. It's just maybe she shouldn't be the one writing everything, doing it, you know. But that's all.
Mm-hmm.
And fans are so often going to love the material more than you do because you create it. You can't care as much when it's something that you've personally created because you're not, going through it and discovering it the way that you would if you're reading it or experiencing it for the first time separately. It's just the natural nature of the relationship, and you work with that, play with it. We can create great things together in that way.
Yeah. Cool. So I think you guys pretty understood how we feel
Yeah,
about the movie.
that pretty
so-
much sums it. I did enjoy
I think
it.
we made it clear.
Well, we have a pretty good idea at this point.
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Closing statement on the movie is my attitude towards this one is pretty much the same as my attitude towards the Hobbit trilogy. It's nowhere near as good as the original, not even close, but it's still decent in its own right, and I'm glad it exists despite its flaws because it does have its redeeming points, even if it's not keeping me riveted beginning to end.
I think The Hobbit is like an interesting
Yeah.
corollary as well because you're expanding this small story that
Right.
you arguably didn't
It's
have
the
like as
textbook.
much, Yeah. But yeah,
Even
I
less
agree.
so. Even less so.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just a textbook.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
nothing to add. I agree.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me neither.
I think I'm
No.
done now.
Yeah,
I think we were talking about this because like we're going to talk about the sequel. I guess we should say that real quick,
Topical,
just in case
yeah.
people wonder like why now. But
Yeah.
that's why.
because we want to make sure we've got laid the groundwork and we at least have an understanding of what this is, because I know I hadn't watched it until we decided to do this. But yeah, we've been railing on it for a while, but I just want to say I do enjoy this film. It's just it's deeply flawed, and more importantly, it's undermining the foundation of what's to come for me. So that's why I'm kind of passionate about that. It's damaging, unfortunately. But it does, as Connor said, it does have some great points. You know, we've spoken about the characters. We all love Newt, which, you know, is it's the first Hufflepuff that we've been given that can really, you know, unite people behind the house, I think, on the hero level, which is nice.
Not your precious Ernie McMillan.
Read that fan fiction. But yeah, those are my closing thoughts. I just really enjoyed the film, and I wish it had been able to be more than it is on top of that.
Yep.
I guess we should wrap
Yeah,
up.
all done
and
then.
Say goodbye.
Yeah.
I am ready for, and I still have an outro.
Sure, he doesn't. Grigida91, thanks for watching.
Evanova 95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Hogwarts.
No, shut up. We're not Ilvermorny.
Antoine
Ilvermorny one.
Vandelay, peace, love, and mischief managed.
Goodbye.
Good night.
Oh, last point, because I forgot to mention it earlier. Loved the remark between the little competition between Hogwarts and Ilvermorny. Loved that line. That was hilarious.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Hogwash.
Bye-bye.